It is June 9th, and I am back in action once more. Aerial reconnaissance has reportedly found a large number of Soviet tanks in an assembly area. The assumption that the Soviets are starting a large offensive does not prove correct, however, and we are involved only in some minor combats, which result in 2 wounded, June 15th. Today we are between Jassy and Targol Frumos, dug in on high ground, with good observation over a flat green area. Behind us, several farm buildings are burning, set ablaze by enemy mortar fire. The wind often blows black smoke into our faces. It has a terrible smell and interferes with our breathing. The houses have long been evacuated by their owners, but when they went, they did not always have time to get the cattle out of the buildings and take them along. If the creatures did not die from starvation, they will have been killed by the shelling or by the fires. Carcasses are lying all over the place in various stages of decay, giving off a horrible stench. June 16th. After the onset of darkness, we notice enemy movements on the wide, flat expanse in front of us. The expected attack has still not materialized, but we are bombarded throughout the night with high explosive shells. The enemy can see where we are because we are silhouetted against the flames constantly rising up behind us. June 17th. In the gray of the dawn, there is a dense fog which appears to be slowly moving towards us, driven by the wind. I have never seen it like this. It may be that the enemy is taking advantage of this morning fog and moving towards us under its cover. The milky wall of fog is approaching us and seems to get even thicker. Then, through my sight, I spot what appears to be the outline of a bent figure, with what looks like a kit bag or something on his back. I take aim and, at a range of at least 1 kilometer, fire a short burst at it. The effect is so amazing that we all burst out laughing. Ivan must have been carrying smoke grenades, which apparently also caused the fog. Immediately after I fire, a great cloud of white smoke comes out of his kit bag. He, in turn, instead of getting rid of it, races away, zigzagging as if somebody is chasing him. Eventually, all the smoke grenades in his kit bag go off, and it looks for all the world as if he is rocket-propelled. Immediately, we open up with our heavy weapons into the fog and halt the enemy attack before it even gets underway. As the fog clears, large numbers of bodies and several mortars and other weapons are spread out on the field below us. June 20th. Although the action over these days is primarily defensive in nature, we do suffer a number of dead and several wounded. Among the latter is our Ober, in charge once more of our depleted squadron. No one knows for certain how many times he has really been wounded. He was wearing the gold wounded badge, which you get after 5 injuries at the bridgehead at Nikopol. If he suffered only minor injuries, he always stayed at headquarters to convalesce, but this time his injuries seem to be more serious, and he will therefore have to be taken to the regimental medical station and later probably transferred to a military hospital back home. June 27th. The regiment was taken off frontline duty on June 21st, and we are now at a rest area near Popesti. Despite the fact that we are talking about a regiment, our actual combat strength is only equivalent to 2 Schwadronen. Besides 1 Unteroffizier, there are now only 7 men left of the original force which made up our Schwadron. Even among the replacements which have come to us from time to time, very few are now left, since many have been killed or wounded. So we are now being replenished with new recruits from Insterberg. We have got a mixed bag of young and old men, among whom are many East Europeans of German ethnic background and also a lot of Russian volunteers. Instead of rearming us with urgently needed weapons, they want to bolster our strength with hastily trained cannon fodder. It is madness. July 14th. A couple of rumors are circulating. One says that our unit is supposed to be going to East Prussia to secure our border there. We ask ourselves if the government, and that means Hitler, really believes that the enemy will soon be there. It is also said that so-called Volksgrenadiere have been assembled in order to increase the fighting power of the unit. We have no idea what kind of units these are supposed to be. Many soldiers are joking about it, suggesting that this would mean that our grandfathers are being called up as the last reserve. Some of the newcomers who have arrived over the recent few days are talking about a new revenge weapon, which is about to be deployed. We wonder when this is supposed to take place, when our cities have been flattened and occupied by the enemy. I had heard about this wonder weapon during my leave, and I reckon it is a rumor put about to give the population new hope. July 15th. Some days ago, we were assigned a lieutenant as our new squadron chef. I cannot even begin to count how many officers we have had since October 1943. He does not seem too bad, but he does not have the gift of imparting to the squadron the feeling of belonging and comradeship that is necessary. Somehow something is missing, something we old hands can feel. Too many new faces have come along, and we have to get used to them. We old-timers have formed our own clique. The newcomers admire us for our decorations and for our long experience of the front line, but we do not warm to them. It is the same with the new leaders. They do not know us and they cannot judge us correctly, and so they do not know how best to deploy us to the unit's advantage. We will have to wait and see when we are back on the line. On the front line, where you are dependent on one another, the feeling of unity and comradeship comes about almost by itself. July 18th. The rest and relaxation period is over. We drive to Roman and then march the rest of the way to entrain. We are actually destined for East Prussia, though en route our orders are changed and we are redirected to Poland. The Soviets are said to have crossed the River Bug and are marching west. July 20th. There has been an attempt on Hitler's life. None of us know anything about the reasons for this. There is talk of a conspiracy among high-ranking officers who are now going to be executed. We are also surprised to learn that from now on, instead of the normal military salute, we must use the German salute with the outstretched hand, just like the SS, we think. But orders are orders. I do not really think this ruling will do anything to improve esprit de corps. On the contrary, we are wondering why they think they ought to move us soldiers closer to the party bigwigs. Anyway, they are hangers-on, and we shall find ways of taking care of them. They are supposed to have assigned political officers even on the staffs, and they are to bring us, the fighting men, closer to National Socialist ideals. What utter nonsense, as if it will help us survive. Thank goodness I have never met up with this type face to face. Anyway, I doubt they would have the guts to join us in the trenches. July 21st. We are in Poland, given the mission to hold the front line near Yaroslav on the River San. The enemy has already tried to cross the river at several points. During day one, we meet up with German troops cut off from their own units, generally panic-stricken and wandering aimlessly around in the lowlands along the banks of the river. They tell us that many of their comrades have been shot by Polish partisans. During the night, we are involved in heavy fighting and manage to prevent the enemy from crossing the river. July 25th. While it is still dark, a formation of tanks with mounted infantry launches an attack. We have no anti-tank weapons and have to evacuate our positions. Everyone runs back in panic, seeking protection in a cornfield. The tanks chase us and overtake us. The mounted Soviets attack and many of us are killed in hand-to-hand fighting. Warriors and I manage to hide under some straw that has been flattened by the rain. Because of the dark, we are very lucky and do not get discovered. After an hour, as some of the tanks have been destroyed and the enemy is again forced back, we risk pulling out of the cornfield. Nothing has happened to us, and we have even been able to save our heavy machine gun. It has been a bloody day with heavy losses. Many of the men have been butchered in close combat with enemy infantry. They lie there with crushed heads and slit stomachs. Many have been flattened by the tanks. Since our flight through the cornfield, our commander, the lieutenant, has gone missing. He was last seen with a tank catching him in the field, and he was running back with some soldiers. No one knows whether he is wounded, was killed, or fell into enemy hands. Judging by the massacre, the enemy has not taken any prisoners. The word missing gives hope to families, although people who have experienced the war in Russia would not give a farthing for such a hope. Such is the pent-up hatred of the enemy that anyone who falls into their hands does not have a chance of surviving, and any hope melts like snow in the spring sunshine. Even though we did not know our lieutenant well, we regret his loss very much. He may have had only limited experience, but he had a strong sense of duty and was an exemplary officer. Fritz Hayman lost his assistant gunner, and with him also the mounting for the heavy machine gun. Now the only operational heavy machine gun is mine. July 26th. An Oberleutnant has been appointed as our new squadron chef, and he is taking over our small band and the remains of the 7th Squadron. The enemy keeps attacking our position near Wola Pelkinska. Our losses mount steadily, and the number of dead rises and rises. Between the firefights, we are told that our new chef has also fallen. The speed with which blossoming human life is snuffed out is an indication of how hard and terrible the fighting is, and it gets even worse. One leader relieves another. All through this savage butchery, the new men in our squadron become more and more anxious. They are only fighting because of the sense of duty which has been drummed into them. When there is fighting, more and more of them only go forward reluctantly, trying to stay back under cover for as long as possible. If I need more ammunition while fighting is going on, I often have to yell my head off because the ammunition carriers are sitting in some foxhole or other and dare not come up front to us. As a result, Warius or I have to run back to the rear ourselves in order to get it. Our carriers, some of them volunteers, claim they have not heard our calls because of the racket going on, so we are in even greater danger, and the outcome is that not long afterwards my old pal Warius gets wounded in the shoulder and has to be evacuated to the medical facility. Now Warius is not here, and I am definitely missing something. A great feeling of despondency has come over me, and I would love to crawl into a hole somewhere, but I sense that my resignation has caused a further lowering of morale in our replacements, since they look upon us old hands as the fearless, combat-experienced men. I therefore feel obliged to give at least the outward impression of a brave soldier. I am helped in this by my routine attitude and my somewhat stubborn commitment during combat. July 27th. The enemy has crossed the river Wisloch in the north with strong forces and is fighting his way forward. We are trying to hold him back between Landshut and Reichshof, but we only partly succeed. My new number 2 is Obergefreiter Dorka, who was formerly with the 7th Squadron. Dorka is an old-timer who, having convalesced after getting wounded at the Nikopol bridgehead, was returned to his squadron in Romania. After a heavy day of fighting, we pull into quarters in Reichshof, where we are again reorganized. No one knows any longer what belongs to whom. The rest of the squadron is revamped and forms a kind of battle group led by a battalion staff, and we get a trickle of men from the replacement depot in Insterburg. To my delight, Waldy reappears among these replacements. He has been on a non-commissioned officer course and now wears the appropriate silver braid. He was assigned somewhere else to begin with, but he has managed to get transferred to become our section leader. He is surprised to find that Fritz Hamann and I are still here, but is delighted to be with us again. He tells us that our Oberleutnant, the Prince, had supposedly submitted the paperwork for us to be awarded the next highest medal, but after his death, this had not been sent on by the Spice. Turnip told him this when they were together in the convalescent unit. We knew nothing of this, but we were not particularly surprised. We know how these things go and realize it always depends upon the individual judgment of a superior. What makes the difference, and Fritz thinks like I do, is that our most fervent wish is that we can survive this damned war. We have made it so far, and with God's help we can make it to the end. Unfortunately, this piece of luck was not granted our good comrade Waldy. July 28th. Waldy has changed a lot. Now that he wears braid, he has more responsibility and has to set a good example for the new men. But he does not. He is nervous and apprehensive, and although he tries to hide it from the others, he cannot hide it from me. I can see the problem. He has been away from this murderous war for too long, and he has to get used to it all over again, used to the fact that death is all around us, but that we nevertheless cannot bury our heads in the sand. Once, when we were attacking through a forest where the enemy had dug in, Waldy was nowhere to be seen. We had to pull back because of heavy counterfire, and I found him taking cover in the same place he was before the attack. Thinking about this, I believe that Waldy had sensed in his subconscious that something awful was about to happen. Some days later, when we had organized a few bottles of brandy from a local distillery and emptied them after the fighting, he made some very strange remarks, which at the time I interpreted as just a few sentimental comments made under the influence. He talked a good deal about his friend Fritz Koschinski, who had been killed during the battle for the Nikopol bridgehead. He also talked about the death of his grandmother and claimed to have heard the tolling of her funeral bell, although she had been dead for a long time. This conversation came back to me the next morning when I had to witness Waldy being caught by a burst of enemy machine gun fire and falling dead to the ground. A young relative of our earlier commander, a young prince too, also fell for Führer, Volk und Vaterland, as it is so nicely worded in the obituary notice. August 5th. This evening we were relieved by another unit and drove for the remainder of the night. In the morning we occupied a house at the Szczucin bridgehead, and we have spent the entire day resting up. There is everything that a soldier's heart desires in the many supply depots in Galicia. We are living like the proverbial maggots in the bacon. Ammunition, which has been in short supply, is now available and we can stock up, and even a unit equipped with the so-called stovepipes for close-range anti-tank use can now be resupplied. August 6th. Today my state of mind has sunk to 0 level. I genuinely believed that I had become strong enough to be able to eliminate all thoughts of anything threatening or unpleasant, but that plainly is not the case. As if something is driving me, I have to think about all the friends who have died beside me, and to recognize that, among a very few, I am still alive. I am convinced that God has heard my prayers, but then I also know that others also prayed and, in spite of that, perished. What is the secret and the purpose that might explain why God decides upon different fates? This concludes the 24th part of the story. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe for more episodes and leave a comment.